All right, we've got breaking NFL news. Jordan Love, the Green Bay Packers quarterback, has just signed a record deal. Not a record-breaking deal, but a record deal. $220 million, $55 million per year. So we've got to react to this. We have to tell you what this means for Brock Purdy and the 49ers, since he is less than a year away from being eligible to be paid as well. But here is the announcement of Jordan Love's contract. They're extending him for $220 million. That is the full value. Again, over 4 years, that breaks down to $55 million per year. Key point right now is that Brock Purdy is better than Jordan Love. That's really shouldn't be in dispute. If Brock Purdy can deliver in a similar fashion to how he's delivered over 2022 and 2023 and 2024, well, then he will line up to be paid as the top quarterback in football, unless Patrick Mahomes redoes his deal around that time, because we might be able to expect that as well. But the way that these contracts work is that every subsequent one, if the quarterback is within the threshold of the top 10, he gets paid as the top quarterback in football. Each contract one-ups the one prior to it. So Jordan Love is now at the top of the heap alongside a couple other familiar names. Here are the quarterback APY rankings. Love at number 3. Well, number 3. The APY is tied with Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence at $55 million per year. But Burrow and Lawrence both signed longer deals, which were worth more total money, so that's the tiebreaker here. Tua Tagovailoa signed a contract a little bit earlier today, and he did not quite reach the high water mark. Tua Tagovailoa is at $53.1 million, which I think is reflective of the fact that there's some skepticism also on the Dolphins' part that this guy may be a little bit more of a system product, if you will. Tua Tagovailoa, not as good under pressure. And, you know, I get it. Everybody's a system product, but I think there had been a little bit more of that worry in Miami with Tua. So he, unlike a lot of quarterbacks who deliver top 10 efficiency, unlike most quarterbacks who deliver top 10 efficiency, did not sign a deal that set the new market standard. Tagovailoa now slots in at number 4. Jared Goff also did not sign a deal that set the positional standard. He slotted in at $53 million, which is now number 5. I think we can all agree that Jared Goff, very much a product of good pass protection for the Detroit Lions. The difference between Brock Purdy and essentially every quarterback on here, except for Joe Burrow, because Purdy is much more accomplished than numbers 2 through 5, Lawrence, Love, Tagovailoa, and Goff. But the difference between Purdy and everybody not named Burrow, and hey, maybe even you could toss him into his own category outside of Burrow, is that Brock Purdy is very, very good even when the pass protection hasn't been great. Here's a look at the efficiency last season. X-axis is completion percentage above expectation. Y-axis is expected points added per play. You want to be further to the right and further up. Well, Brock Purdy is way up here in the upper right corner. Jordan Love started the season off poorly, and then he played much better. He was more of an upper right guy over the back half of the season. But if you cumulatively considered all of Jordan Love's numbers last season, he's right here toward the middle, just a little bit above average. I get it. He finished the season hot. That helped get him paid $55 million per year. But if people are going to be telling you that Brock Purdy's sample size is too small, well, I think Jordan Love's is even smaller. If Brock Purdy can do what he has done in 2024, if he can repeat it, his sample size will be almost astronomically bigger than Jordan Love's is right now. And that's earned Jordan Love that contract worth $220 million total at $55 million per year. But anyway, back to the graphic. I think that the big domino for Brock Purdy's deal is the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, who was at tight end U, and his name is Dak Prescott. Dak is entering a contract year. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent. At least he's scheduled to be one in 2025. Dak is a good quarterback. You can see where Dak Prescott is on this XY graph. The only quarterback that's clearly better than Dak is Brock Purdy. So Dak and Brock Purdy are both going to be up for new contracts at the same time. Purdy's not going to be an unrestricted free agent, though. Purdy is going to be entering year 4 of his contract, but he'll be eligible for a new one. Dak is headed toward unrestricted free agency because his deal expires after 2024 with the Cowboys. So it stands the reason that Dak Prescott's contract might be bigger just because of the added urgency that comes with his contract expiring. But I think that he and Purdy are going to be neck and neck for that top spot. And again, when we talk about the top spot, go back to here. One of the big questions is, will that quarterback market reach 60 million per year by the time that Brock Purdy's up? I think that the two most recent deals that we've just seen with Jordan Love and Tua Tagovailoa, the fact that they did not shatter the ceiling of 55 million set by Joe Burrow and then matched by Trevor Lawrence, that shows that there's been at least a little bit of a slowdown in the quarterback market. I get it. The resumes are not perfect for neither Jordan Love nor Tua Tagovailoa. So that also was something that constrained these contracts to not go above the Burrow and Lawrence numbers. That being said, with only this guy, Dak Prescott, standing in between Brock Purdy and his turn, and maybe Brock Purdy goes first. Who knows? Purdy's going to be eligible when the regular season ends this year, with only one more reasonable name on the list that can potentially crack the 55 million here. I think it's actually a little bit less likely that we see Purdy at the $60 million mark. So it remains to be seen, but I think Purdy's going to be above this list. And the question is, how close to 60 million? And Dak Prescott may be one of the parameters that helps us answer that question. Key thing, though, is that, yes, Brock Purdy is better than Jordan Love. So my last name is Lombardi. I figure a lot of Green Bay fans will be on here and they'll want to argue about it. Maybe we can create a poll. Is Brock Purdy or Jordan Love better? Here's the EPA and the completion percentage above expectation composite last year. Look how far Brock Purdy is ahead of even number 2, Dak Prescott. 0.204, which is an absurd number, absurdly efficient. Prescott number 2 at 0.164. So it's essentially Brock Purdy and everyone else. Jordan Love down at number 9. Now, again, Love finished out the season hot. You got to give him credit for that. And I think this deal gives him credit for that. $55 million annually for Jordan Love on the new contract with the Green Bay Packers. How about we open this up to a little bit of a Q&A, and then maybe we talk about the practice 3 of 49ers camp. So I am ready for your questions here on the question and answer session. It's Friday evening. It's time to talk quarterback contracts. How are the 49ers going to afford this? Can they afford Trent Williams? Can they afford Christian McCaffrey? Can they afford Brandon Ayuk under the same roof as Brock Purdy next year? The short answer to that question, which I assume is coming, is yes. They can actually afford it more easily if they're able to get something done with Trent Williams now, if they're able to get something done with Brandon Ayuk now, because contracts that are finished now can take control of the cap situation of those players and spread cap hits out over 5+ years. Right now, Brandon Ayuk is set to make $14.1 million. That all has to hit the cap in this 2024 season. If they can execute a long-term deal with Ayuk now, they can actually lower his 2024 cap hit to about $8 million, and they could start stretching that excess money out over the future in a way that makes them a little bit more flexible to fit a potential Brock Purdy mega deal under the cap. Same thing with Trent Williams. He's got a rather rigid cap situation right now with his existing contract in 2024, 2025, and 2026. But if you could find a way to restructure Trent Williams' deal to compensate him more with guaranteed money now, then you could probably find a way to stretch money into the future. That would obviously accelerate if he retired, but the 49ers need to think about the fact that Trent Williams has leverage right now, and they need Trent back. You talk about Brock Purdy excelling. Well, Trent Williams should probably be out on that field to help that cause. So the 49ers need to make sure that happens. They need to make sure big number 71 is happy in that regard because he's got a lot of leverage now. But I think they can strike a win-win to where they can satisfy Trent Williams and also create some cap flexibility given the fact that unused salary cap space carries over from season to season. All right, let's go. Well, we've got 49ers Q&A. Somebody's asking how much of Jordan Love's contract is guaranteed. That's a good question. I only have the initial numbers right now. Mike, if you see how much of Jordan Love's new contract is guaranteed, please let me know, and we'll be able to answer some of that question. David points out that this just shows how valuable Brock is currently. Yes, Brock Purdy, his cap hit's only about 1 million this season. So you've got these contracts worth 55 million. Brock Purdy outplaying everybody right here, far and ahead of everybody else at a cap hit of only 1 million. Mike says it's 155 million in total guarantees for Jordan Love. So that's not fully guaranteed money. That's total guaranteed money. That would rank behind Kyler Murray and ahead of Josh Allen in total guaranteed money. Fully guaranteed money, Deshaun Watson still tops that list, and he tops that list by a lot. He's got 230 million fully guaranteed. Second highest is 146.5 million for Joe Burrow. So that contract for Deshaun Watson ended up being an outlier, kind of like Justin Jefferson's contract. It looks like it's going to end up being an outlier for the wide receiver position. But when we talk about Dak Prescott and the impact that his contract might have as far as setting the exact parameters for Brock Purdy's deal, we have to realize that the Cowboys are in a situation where they're also having to pay some star players, including a star receiver who's about to enter the fifth-year option portion of his contract, and that's CeeDee Lamb. And CeeDee Lamb is actually holding out a training camp. Ayuk is in the building. He's holding in. He's not practicing either. But it's funny to see the parallels between the 49ers and the Cowboys. Both their quarterbacks are going to be up for a new deal. Both their quarterbacks are obviously really good players. We can take a look at this right here. I have Jordan Love highlighted, but Dak Prescott can be highlighted as well. I'll unhighlight Jordan Love because Prescott and Purdy are at the top of the league. Prescott and Purdy are both throwing to two good receivers from the same draft class in CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Ayuk, and both of those guys are also looking for new contracts from their respective teams. All right, anyway, I digress. You can see both Purdy and Prescott at the top of this list, and I'm ready to answer more of your questions. Purdy might ask for 40 million. Are you kidding me? Brock Purdy's not going to ask for 40 million. Brock Purdy, 40 million in terms of average per year right now. That's down like near what Derek Carr is making. That's down in the middle of the pack. Brock Purdy's an MVP finalist. He's worth a lot more than that. The 49ers worked out Josh Love. They didn't, they brought him in to work out. They didn't sign him. I think the workout went well, but the teams do this all the time. And I wanted to report this because Josh Love has local ties. He practiced or he played at San Jose State. Teams will do this throughout the course of the season, especially now, to set themselves up in case they have a need at the position later on. So that if a guy gets hurt or a backup gets hurt, you need more depth later in the season so you're not caught cold. You're ready for any potential contingency. So the 49ers, the workout with Josh Love went well. They're not going to make a signing imminently, but he could be somebody that they call a little bit later. We know that the quarterback position is important to have on reserve. Yeah, Purdy's agent wouldn't be stupid enough to ask for 40. That'd be ridiculous. Tom Brady, I get it. He took discounts later in his career, but he didn't take discounts that would essentially cut his salary in half. Like he still was earning big money for the New England Patriots. Asking Brock Purdy to take 40 million when his market rate is looking like it's going to be damn close to 60 million. That's a little unrealistic, guys. That's like turning off all the realism in Madden and just signing everybody that you want to lower deals. It doesn't work that way in real life. Brock Purdy's going to want to be paid commensurate to his value. And the 49ers, we've already talked to Jed York about this. The 49ers are going to be ready to do that. Again, as long as the salary cap keeps rising, the 49ers are in good shape because what they can do is they can offer guaranteed money to their star players who deserve it, and they could actually gain more control over their respective cap situations because signing bonuses can be amortized against the cap. They automatically are. This is Christian McCaffrey's new contract. The cap hits are shaded in blue, in green, and over here in turquoise or teal, whichever number you want. By the way, turquoise, I think this is teal, so it's not turquoise. I learned that the color turquoise, the name comes from Turkey. I was in Turkey this offseason, and that's because in Turkey, if you go to the Turkish Riviera, the water is turquoise. So it's this beautiful light blue color. So you should all go check out the Turkish Riviera because that's going to be some of the most beautiful beachfront property in the world, and it's actually inspired the name of a color. I digress. Why don't we talk more about Christian McCaffrey's salary cap impact over the years? The 49ers gave him a big signing bonus. That signing bonus stretches out against the cap over 5 years. So McCaffrey gets the money now, but it only counts incrementally against the salary cap, thus helping the 49ers. Guaranteed option bonus is going to kick in for Christian in 2025. That also stretches against the cap, even though he gets all the money in 2025. So you can see here, as long as the salary cap keeps on rising, the 49ers can fit more under the roof in subsequent years, which is why they're pushing this money into the future. That helps them keep Brock Purdy that helps them pay Brock Purdy while keeping Christian McCaffrey, while keeping Brandon Ayuk, and potentially even keeping Deebo Samuel. Jesus says these teams are sinking themselves with these QB overpays. In a lot of ways, I agree. I think that a guy like Brock Purdy, who's an MVP finalist, you can go ahead and pay him a ton of money. A guy like Joe Burrow, who is one of the top QBs in the league, just right alongside Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy, you can go ahead and pay him that kind of money. But players like Trevor Lawrence, who has a mediocre track record at best, players like Jordan Love, who's had half of a good season, but nothing much past that, players like Tua Tagovailoa, there's a lot of question about whether or not he's a system product with what McDaniel's running there in Miami, and players like Jared Goff, who crumple as soon as there's a little bit of pressure. When you start paying them close to the top of the market or the top of the market, that's when you can really sink your roster. It's worth it to pay a quarterback who is at the very top of the game, and Burrow, Mahomes, Purdy have proven through the numbers that they've put up that they're at the very top of the game. Dak Prescott, also a really good quarterback. It's worth it to pay those guys top dollar. But once you start paying guys who may not be top shelf quarterbacks, top shelf money, that's when you could get yourself into a little bit of trouble. I think that's a really good point from Jesus. Becky says, I think Purdy deserves way more than Love with the last 2 seasons he's had. Love hasn't proven himself yet. Yeah. I mean, for everybody's trying to say that Brock Purdy still needs to add more to his sample size, and fine. He's going to have to add more to his sample size because he's not eligible for a new contract until next season. So he's got this season to prove it if people still think he needs to prove it. But the truth of the matter is that Jordan Love has done less than Brock Purdy in the National Football League. He certainly hasn't been as impressive as Brock Purdy over the stretch of time that Purdy has been the starter for the 49ers, yet Jordan Love was able to secure a deal worth $55 million annually. So the logic is sound. If Brock Purdy continues at this trajectory, he will make more than Jordan Love. And when you look at the truth of the matter, Brock Purdy has been better than Jordan Love. I mean, we have to rely on data, guys. We absolutely have to rely on data. Purdy's data is irrevocable at this point. He's at the very upper right-hand corner of this. I mean, this is where Patrick Mahomes has resided for his entire NFL career up until this past season when Brock Purdy took that top spot. You know, you could look at all of the advanced metrics, and a quarterback is only as good as the way that he runs the weapons and the system that he's been handed. Right? Every single quarterback has to deal with the weapons and the system that they've been given. They operate within that context, and Brock Purdy has just done a fantastic job operating within the 49ers context. Jordan Love, he's got weapons too with Green Bay. He's got a really, really nice young receiving core, guys that really emerged onto the scene over the course of the stretch run last season. The game against the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs was especially impressive for the Packers, and I think that it definitely put a lot of those guys on the map. Guys like Dontavian Wicks, just a really good-looking team for Green Bay. I think they're going to be rivals with the 49ers and Brock Purdy for years to come. 49ers Q&A rolls on. Let's go. Ted points out that Purdy was hurt last season. I wouldn't say to you he was hurt. Purdy was still recovering, though, from the elbow injury. He was building up full strength. So he obviously got hurt in 2022 to close that season against the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think that he was at 100% full throwing velocity until about November of the 2023 season. But that brings us to the next point here. That brings us to what Brock Purdy has been doing in this training camp. He's been throwing with more zip. He threw his first interception of camp today. It was a deep pass where he was really heavily pressured, and it was hauled in by the safety, Jair Brown. I think Mike actually sent some video to me of this, so maybe we can check this play out. 49ers posted video of the interception. Yep, it is available. So we will grab it and we will play it. But anyway, the big takeaway from the first three practices is that Brock Purdy is stronger, he's sturdier, he's throwing with more velocity. And despite the fact that the 49ers got completely overrun along the offensive line today, he was still holding his own. Now, one of the plays where they did get overrun is where this happened, and this was the interception. So let's take a quick look at Jair Brown's pick on the Brock Purdy throw intended for Deebo Samuel. It was a really nice pick. He was able to get both feet in bounds. And then, of course, Jair Brown celebrated with Diamador Lenore. One more time. It was a good play. So we've seen Dobbs, Brandon Allen, and Brock Purdy now throw interceptions at 49ers practice. I'm ready for more questions from you, looking through some of these. I'm guessing the comment section is arguing about Purdy, Dak Prescott, and Jordan Love. Now, Dak actually has a track record that's longer than just a couple years. And he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. Purdy's going to be eligible for a deal with a year still left on his contract, which means a little bit more leverage on the 49ers side. But hey, as we see here with Trent Williams, and as we saw last year with Nick Bosa, if you're good enough and if your position is important enough to the success of a football team, if it's irreplaceable enough, it doesn't matter how much time you have left on your contract. You've got the leverage. You could say, I'm going to hold out, pay me what I want, and the team is probably going to have to cave. That was the case with Nick Bosa in 2023. That defense really needed him. Bosa just sat at home and he said, pay me. I'm not going to show up until I get the money that I want. The 49ers finally blinked right before the start of the regular season because they needed Nick Bosa that bad. Trent Williams, I think, is in a similar situation, except that he's 36 and he could threaten that he's going to retire, theoretically. Bosa obviously couldn't threaten that back when he was up for his contract last year. But Williams is just as important to the 49ers offense as Bosa is to their defense. In fact, with the looming investment in Brock Purdy, you might even make the case that Williams is more important. But that's beside the point. Williams is in a high leverage position, just like Nick Bosa was last year. Brandon Ayuk is in a lower leverage position. The 49ers have McCaffrey. They have Kittle. They have Deebo Samuel. The offense can still fire away, even without Brandon Ayuk. They won't be quite as good, but they can still fire away. No matter how good Ayuk is, and I think he's a fantastic player, it's just tough luck for him. He's not in as advantageous of a position as Nick Bosa and Trent Williams. If you fast forward to Brock Purdy and his potential leverage, Dak Prescott and his potential leverage, well, these are quarterbacks. And Purdy, even if he does have another year on his deal after this season, if he says I'm not showing up until I get 60 million a year, the 49ers ultimately are going to have to pay him 60 million a year if they're in title contention, right? I mean, it's one of those situations where the quarterback position is so irreplaceable. And a player like Brock Purdy has played so well. Obviously, he's got to do it again in 2024 for any of this to mean something. But he's played so well, that position so irreplaceable. You can immediately put him in the bucket of Trent Williams and Nick Bosa in terms of importance. And I would say he's going to be in a separate bucket on top of that, beyond that, right? Because quarterback is more important than edge rusher or left tackle. Now we got people talking about Danny Gray. I think Danny Gray has been decently impressive over this camp, but it's only been a couple days, and it's not like he's lit the world on fire. We've seen a few catches from Danny Gray, and that's about it. So he's got a lot to prove. There's a lot of guys with a lot to prove. I was initially going to do a 53-man roster breakdown for the 49ers, and we're going to do a more cursory one right now. Why don't we kind of move over into that mode? But then this Jordan Love info came out. So, we're going to move to the 53-man roster breakdown. We're just not going to make this the official one. So we changed gears. I called an audible at the line of scrimmage, and we could talk about guys like Danny Gray. This is my 49ers 53-man roster projection. If you want to check it out, I'm going to copy and paste the link, and I'm going to toss it into the comments section. It's the link to the Google Doc. Got a glass of white wine here. It's Friday. Just so you guys don't look at me too funny as I'm drinking that. You're like, hey, what happened to the bottle of water? Why do you have a wine glass? Well, I'm just going to get out in front of stuff and admit that it's a wine glass. So anyway, here you go. We talked about Jordan Love. We talked about Brock Purdy. And now it's time to talk about the rest of the 49ers roster. I'm going to do it, though, through the lens of the Q&A. I think that's the better way to do this. My friend wants to get burritos at Taqueria Cancun, so I'm texting him back very quickly. We got to finish this show first. Boom. It's going to be a burrito party. Can't wait. And I will answer questions from the Q&A, and then what we're going to do is we're going to refer to the 53-man roster projection and to the depth chart as we do it. What do I think about Dak not getting signed and Trey Lance? Well, Trey Lance would actually have to showcase that he's worth his salt as an NFL quarterback before the Cowboys would do something like that. Training camp is happening. Lance is going to get another opportunity. We'll see him play in the preseason games. But the last that we saw Trey Lance, he wasn't ready to take the torch for the 49ers. And, the 49ers still very much believe in his potential. John Lynch has said this many times. Brock Purdy was just an MVP caliber quarterback. So obviously he was going to take Trey Lance's job, and Sam Darnold beat out Trey too. So maybe Trey will tap into that potential. Maybe he'll improve with the Cowboys. There wasn't room for him to do it with the 49ers. It's just, even when a guy has potential, even when you believe in him, even when you're excited about him, it's not easy to come in, and it should never be expected to come in and perform better than the quarterback I've highlighted here, and that's Dak Prescott. For Trey Lance, it's a little bit of tough luck. First, you're working under Brock Purdy, or Brock Purdy actually shows up after you and takes your spot. That's even worse. But Brock Purdy's the top quarterback in the league by these advanced metrics. And then if you're Trey Lance, you get traded to work behind the number 2 quarterback in the league by these metrics, Dak Prescott. So not the best situation for Trey Lance in Dallas. That being said, yes, Dak Prescott is seeing his contract end after this season. And that's significant because Dallas has got to figure out what to do after that. Now, Trey Lance's contract also up after this next season. So unrestricted free agency, here we come for several quarterbacks that are tied with the 49ers. I know Trey Lance is. Dak Prescott never formally tied with the 49ers, but it was cool to meet him at tight end U over the course of this past offseason. John asks, does Kalia Davis beat out Kevin Givens. The 49ers cut one of them. So right now, pads have not yet come on. So it's really hard to tell who's good and who's not, especially amongst the interior defensive linemen. But your question, John, is one of the interesting ones that I had entering training camp. And, Kalia Davis, I have behind Kevin Givens in the depth chart. I have the 49ers carrying 9 defensive linemen. As you can see, Drake Jackson is a pup guy, so he's not going to count against the 53-man roster if he stays there. But Kevin Givens has been an own commodity for this team. He might not have a particularly high ceiling, but the floor is decent, so I have him making the football team. Kalia Davis, probably a higher upside guy, but also a lower floor guy. Remember that there's also Evan Anderson on this team, and there's Shaquille Brown pushing for a roster spot. T.Y. McGill's probably going to be a practice squad guy again that you can call up. Trusted veteran you have in the building just in case there are injuries. But when you have the more unknown commodities, guys who can potentially blossom into something greater, that's where you look at a player like Kalia Davis. That's where you look at a really strong guy like Shaquille Brown. That's where you look at an undrafted free agent like Evan Anderson. All of those players are in the same bucket as Davis and Kevin Givens, and that's the defensive tackle bucket. You are looking, in essence, for 4 defensive tackles, 2 on the front line and 2 on the second line to comprise your group of 8 defensive linemen who are active on game day. So obviously Javon Hargrave is one of those spots. Obviously Malik Collins, with whom the 49ers traded with the Texans to pick him up, he's going to be another one of those spots. Jordan Elliott signed in free agency. He started for the Browns last year. He's going to be the 3rd spot. So I essentially just see one spot up for grabs, assuming all the defensive tackles stay healthy. And Kevin Givens is the incumbent for that spot. He's been with the 49ers since 2019. But Kalia Davis, the draftee of a couple of years ago, the explosive former middle linebacker who they compared to DJ Jones, he's got a shot at that position. And then you've got Evan Anderson, T.Y. McGill, and Shaquille Brown also pushing for it. We will not know until much further on into training camp. The pads have to come on. Guys have to start pushing each other around. Then maybe preseason has to happen, and we'll see. So I think your question actually shouldn't just be limited to Kalia Davis and Kevin Givens. I think you need to include Shaquille Brown and Evan Anderson into the equation. Jeremy can't wait to see Leonard Floyd on the field in the regular season. This guy's been a monster. This guy's been a really good player over the past 4 years. 39 and a half sacks over 4 years. He's been good for about 10 sacks a season. A lot of people say, oh, Leonard Floyd, those are all cleanup sacks. And it's like the 49ers need cleanup sacks. They've got Javon Hargrave. They've got Nick Bosa. Maybe some of these defensive tackles that I just mentioned make some noise. Well, if that's the case, then you need somebody to clean up on the sack front. And I think that you look at Leonard Floyd, he's got the skill to do that. That's not luck, by the way. The ability to pursue, the ability to find the angle, the ability to feel where the quarterback is going to try to escape, the ability to feel how linemen and different blockers are going to try to compensate and to play off of that, to defeat that. That's a skill that Leonard Floyd has mastered. So I think the 49ers are also very excited to see him play. How does Ronnie Bell look out there? Ronnie, today, there was an overthrow from Purdy to Ronnie Bell when Purdy was really pressured on a deep pass. So that play went nowhere. I've seen Ronnie Bell muff a couple punts. I'm not sure if he's improved in the punt return category. And I think the 49ers are going to want to go with somebody else ultimately in that punt return spot. They did sign Trent Taylor this offseason. We'll see what Ricky Pearsall looks like when he comes back. To be honest with you, over the first 3 practices, I haven't seen anything that really stands out regarding Ronnie Bell. And today, if he would have connected with Brock Purdy on that deep pass, maybe I would say something different, but it's early. And the full contact nature of this sport is not installed in these practices until the pads come on. So why don't we convene back in a couple weeks? Right now, you look at the receiver room, I don't have Ronnie Bell on the inside of the 49ers 53-man roster. I've got Pearsall in there. I've got Jacob Cowing in there, who's impressed. Chris Conley, he's a trusted veteran. Now, maybe you're able to carry Bell and you take Conley on the practice squad instead. Those are all roster maneuverings for about a month from now, though. It's a little bit too early to talk about all that stuff at this point. So give it time. It's only been a couple practices. I've just only seen the couple muffed punts and some of the punt return drills from Ronnie Bell. Invader 49er says if Bell can't contribute on punts, I don't see how he makes the team. They have a lot of punt returners and they need a sixth wide receiver to be able to do it. I think that's a fair point. And when you look here, guess who was really good on special teams in the Super Bowl? And I currently have him as one of the six. Chris Conley. Not as a returner, but as a gunner. So there's value in that. Obviously, Ricky Pearsall might be able to return some punts. Jacob Cowing has been back there already for the 49ers. I think the next step that we need to see is San Francisco needs to get Jacob Cowing, Ricky Pearsall back out on the practice field so we can see what his skill set's going to be. Now, they've added another receiver who I'm going to put onto the roster here because they have an open roster spot with the Trent Williams non-report, and that's Malik Turner. So I'm going to highlight Malik Turner in teal or turquoise. That's more turquoise. That's the turkey color. Turquoise. That's the color of the water in Turkey. So Malik Turner is on the roster now, and the 49ers with Trent Williams on the do not report list have an extra spot. So we can subtract one there. Okay, let's answer some more questions. What are the 49ers going to do with Jake Moody? Well, they're going to keep him, obviously. He's kicking really damn well. 11 of 12 so far in training camp. Looks like they've got, and that's a lot better than it was his rookie season. So it's looking like it's on a really good track with Jake Moody. Yes. Hey, Invader 49er, he's become one of the best commenters. I really appreciate his takes. The 49ers are lucky to have Jake Moody. It's a guy as a rookie, made over 80% of his kicks. He's got real range, nailed 250-plus yarders in the Super Bowl. Logic says he's only going to get better. And so far, training camp has fleshed that out. He's made 11 of 12 kicks, including a 51-yarder today. Most NFL teams would trade places with the 49ers as far as their kicker situation. Ian Sharp says that Trent Taylor is a better option than Bell. I mean, yeah, Trent Taylor didn't muff a single punt over 4 years with the 49ers, and he was the primary punt returner for quite a bit of that time back in his first stint with San Francisco. Punt return is more about the floor than it's about the ceiling. I always use the example a couple years ago, it took almost the whole season for an NFL player to return a punt for a touchdown on any team. Punt coverage has gotten so advanced and so good. They're charting out every single, nook and cranny of the field. And then you've got punters able to directionally punt as well as they ever have. So punt coverage is so advanced right now that it's going to be really hard to return these kicks for touchdowns. It's going to be really hard to have explosive returns. But it's not that hard to screw it up. The punt that bounced off Darrell Luter Jr.'s leg in the Super Bowl that Ray McLeod was unable to recover, that cost the 49ers a Lombardi trophy. So the potential downside of these punt returns is so much more real than the potential upside, which means you've got to get guys out there that are not going to muff punts. You can't screw these plays up. And that's why Trent Taylor's on this football team. As Invader 49er says, punt returner is a very difficult job. Yes. So you cannot take the small parts of punt returner for granted. Those listening on the podcast, it's called the Lombardi Lounge, which sounds like a bar. So I guess white wine makes sense. It's Friday evening. Let's go. We do have training camp practice tomorrow, though, so I got to watch it. Those of you watching or listening on the podcast, you can watch on the YouTube channel and vice versa. Apple Podcast and Spotify. What's for dinner? Taqueria Cancun is for dinner. You got Jack coming up to the city from San Mateo. We'll go with Joe as well. Joe's hanging out right now. We are going to go check out a good carne asada super burrito. Maybe get the chicken super burrito. Also really good from Taqueria Cancun. I should feature some food on this show because I had some Jumpstart coffee the other day. The breakfast sandwich which is one of the best in the city, if not the best in the city. So I'm going to feature that right now. I could show you what was for breakfast as you ask what was for dinner. So check this out. And some of you like breakfast for dinner. So I guess that works as well. Oh, it's overexposed. It's an HDR video. That's not good. Sorry about that. You could kind of tell what that breakfast sandwich looks like, but there's a setting that I have to turn off on my phone, so I'm gonna have to get another video of this that will make this better. It's on a croissant. Unfortunately, the colors are a little too washed out. 24th and Guerrero though. Jumpstart coffee, really good. Karen asks, "Is Dobbs struggling?" I mean, he's thrown the interception. He's airmailed a couple passes. I don't think that the backups have looked all that great for the 49ers so far, but I have to caution people because there's so much overreaction to training camp. Thankfully, it's not nearly as bad as years prior. In years prior, I had to keep track of completions and attempts to keep people who were lying in their reporting about training camp accountable. So I sat there and I made the spreadsheet and I said, okay, this is what Jimmy Garoppolo did. This is what Trey Lance did. This is what Brock Purdy did. Sam Darnold last year. So I mean, we had to be very very detailed about that, and it just got insufferable because people would overreact to every single throw. Training camp is practice. Training camp is a way to install new stuff. Training camp is a way to get guys to be like fish out of water because you want to test them in those environments. And so far, we've only had 3 practices. We only had 3 practices without pads. So yeah, in OTAs and even into training camp, I've noticed that Dobb has airmailed some of these intermediate throws. That's obviously not good, but it's obviously still really early. We haven't even had a move the ball period yet in training camp. Move the ball will happen when pads come on and the chains actually move. And instead of Kyle Shanahan just radioing in plays and the line of scrimmage staying at the same spot over and over again because Kyle Shanahan is just trying to install the offense and move the ball. It's a variable thing. It's okay. This is like a game. You call play based on the down and the distance. 2nd and 6 is going to call for something different than 3rd and 13. 1st and 10 is going to call for something different than 2nd and 2. And that's a much better representation of how a quarterback might actually play in a game. So once move the ball starts, we'll be able to draw much firmer conclusions on these quarterbacks. It's still way too early to do that. Has Dobbs had a couple bad plays? Sure. But is it way too early to be sitting there on the sideline and try to make sweeping conclusions? Yes, it's way too early to do that. I am ready for more questions. I realize I can't be quiet for all too long because now I have a podcast and now a lot of people are just listening on the podcast and they don't see the video. So they'd be like, "Oh, why are you just sitting there for 5 seconds? Are you drinking your wine or what's going on?" But no, I'm just waiting for good questions. In the move the ball period, are they calling plays based on the defense's coverage? Yes. In the move the ball period, you're treating it like an actual game, which is why, back in 2021, Trey Lance looked pretty good at the start of camp, especially when he was going against the twos. And then he hit a wall later in camp once they started running move the ball. He looked good in the heavily choreographed scripted stuff, but once it came time to adjust and run plays on the fly based on the defense, based on the down and distance, he struggled. And Jimmy Garoppolo looked a lot better. And obviously, Garoppolo was the quarterback in that 2021 season. Slow Mo asks, is this the most competitive secondary in recent memory? I think it's definitely the deepest secondary that the 49ers have had under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. I mean, you could see here, especially the cornerback position is absolutely loaded. Charvarius Ward, All-Pro. Isaac Yadam, 11 pass breakups last year. He was in the top 10 of the league last year, and he only started half the season. We know Diamaro Lenore is a good player. Rocky Yassin has been a solid player in the league. He's depth for the 49ers. Renardo Green, second-round pick. We'll see how quickly he can acclimate. I think he still needs to add a little bit of NFL type of strength. It's strength that Darrell Luter Jr. has added. He's now in his second season. Darrell had that interception on the deep throw to Jawan Jennings from Josh Dobbs that he just went up and high pointed. That was an impressive play. Ambry Thomas, he's on the outside looking into the roster picture right now, which I think is a sign of how much deeper the 49ers have gotten. Samuel Womack had a nice pass breakup against Danny Gray the other day, and he's also on the outside looking in. Chase Lucas, it's interesting to me because Chase Lucas was a really damn good gunner for the Detroit Lions. He could be a backup nickelback. And I think the 49ers signed him with that in mind. But he's been playing some outside cornerback for the second and third units as well. He's a little bit slighter of frame, though. Chase Lucas, I mean, the 49ers like their cornerbacks to be big and strong. That's a thing with this football team. That's why I think they're going to try to add some muscle to Renardo Green. So Lucas, he's already been around the league for 3 years. He's a veteran, and he still is a little bit slighter of frame. Just something that's worth noting. I don't have him making the roster as of right now, but obviously a lot can still happen between now and cut down day. Gregory says Purdy has really developed his body. I mean, yeah, they call him Baby Bosa legs for a reason. Michael asks, have they tried moving some of the cornerbacks on the bubble to safety for depth? That is always a possibility. They moved Isaiah Oliver last year to safety later in the season. So safety is a position where we've been talking about a potential free agent addition. Obviously, the 49ers haven't done that. But Talanoa Hufanga is still on PUP. Jair Brown is starting, and he picked off that pass today. There's Malik Mustafa, and there's George Odom. And Mustafa has been good. Odom is a really good special teams player. George Odom has been seeing first-team reps, by the way, for the 49ers right now. He's a good backstop at that safety position, but you're looking for somebody who specializes in that. George Odom specializes in the special teams aspect of the game. I want to play some practice highlights for you from today because there was a lot of good stuff that happened in practice, including the San Francisco Fire Department station number 13. You probably saw that video that I put up, but if you didn't, don't worry, we're going to play it. And we're also going to get the 49ers full practice reel up because it was more good stuff out there today. I just can't find the reel here on my phone. You guys can look at the depth chart while you wait. Actually, I'm going to close the depth chart. Give me a second. Let's find the practice reel, and then let's go from there. I'll answer a question while I'm looking for this on my phone. Do I think that Ward will be coming back next season on an extension? Sure. It's a possibility, but they also have to extend Diamaro Lenore. They also have to extend, these are guys on expiring contracts. They don't have to extend them, but Lenore's on an expiring deal. Isaac Yadam will be on an expiring deal. Rocky Yassin will be on an expiring deal. So you've got a bunch of veteran cornerbacks on expiring deals. You're not going to be able to re-sign all of them. You're probably going to have to pick one of those guys. Ward would be, in all likelihood, the most expensive to bring back next year. So that's all something to keep in mind before next season. Man, I don't know where my big practice reel went. I know it's on YouTube, and I know that I've got good Brock Purdy content to play for you immediately. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to play the Brock Purdy Fire Department, San Francisco Fire Department number 13, because that was just such a cool moment out at practice today.
Man, that's awesome. You're number 13. We're station number 13 in San Francisco. We're downtown. And all the members of the house got together and made you this. So we wanted to present that to you. And if you could just sign our jersey. This is going to go, in the station, like pretty much right as you walk in.
Let's go.
So sick. Yeah, we appreciate that, man.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, if it's all right if you could put to Station 13.
So dope.
Nice. Appreciate it.
So dope.
You guys are big heroes.
I visited your guys' station. You guys have all the 13s Bay Area athletes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so
exactly.
dope.
Yeah.
It's right in downtown San Francisco.
Yeah.
If you're ever in the city, come on down.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to come by the firehouse? We'll give you a ride.
Let's go.
Get you in the fire or something like that.
Not when he's cooking.
Yeah.
So quite a moment there at training camp today over in the community corner. If you remember, I was at San Francisco Fire Department Station number 13 right after veteran mini camp. I just popped in there and I saw the 13 jersey up on the wall, and they said, hey, we got to get out there. We got to meet Brock, and they want Brock to come up there. Well, it just makes too much sense, right? Number 13. And then now at least they have Brock Purdy's signed number 13 jersey up on the wall. So that's what it's all about. You know, I'm trying to connect the community and the 49ers. And that's what my coverage is trying to do, right? I'm trying to highlight the best of San Francisco, obviously highlight the best of the 49ers and bring the two together, because without the community, there is no excitement about the 49ers. It would just be a bunch of guys playing football in front of no crowd. But the history, the city, the community, that's what makes all of this so damn special. It was really, really cool. I'm glad it's had the reaction that it's had. In fact, I should probably go to my Twitter page right now and retweet that from this afternoon, give that some more exposure. I mean, I could tell you guys what kind of numbers this is doing. 83,000 people have already watched it, and we have 2.2 thousand likes on the Brock Purdy San Francisco Fire Department Station number 13 video. That's on my Twitter up on Lombardi himself. So really cool. They gave him the hat. They a custom made the helmet. I should say it's a helmet, not just a hat. The custom made fire helmet. I'm gonna swing by and I'm gonna get a San Francisco Fire Department Station number 13 hat to wear for some of these videos. We talk about this being the season of the hat. I want one of those, and maybe I could even get one this weekend. Should be a lot of fun. Shout out to all those guys, though. Rico, I think one of the guys there in the video, and then Mario. Mario's my main contact. Unfortunately, Mario was in San Diego with his family when the firehouse went down to see the 49ers today at camp. So Mario, I was texting with him. He was like, oh, man, I wish I could have been there. But maybe Brock is going to make it up to the city, to the actual firehouse, which I think would be a cool, fitting next development in this story. Invader 49ers says $65 million if Brock Purdy is the Super Bowl MVP. Back to the top of the show. Jordan Love has signed a new contract, and it's at $55 million per year. Prescott and Purdy will be in line for theirs potentially next off season. And those might be at $60 million. Invader 49er thinks 65. It seems to me that the market slowed down a tiny bit, though. I get it. Jordan Love not as accomplished as Joe Burrow. So it's a situation where it's hard to argue for more money than Joe Burrow if you're Jordan Love. Tua Tagovailoa, though, did not eclipse the $55 million either. So maybe the market will hover a little bit around 55, 56 million. And that's why that Dak Prescott domino, if it falls before Brock Purdy, might be what encourages this market to shoot back up towards 60 million by the time that Brock Purdy signs. We'll see if Brock Purdy is the first or the second $60 million quarterback, though. It definitely is possible. I think I'm going to be going to all the away games this year, starting with Nashville. Where preseason game, we're going to be having a fan meetup at a bar, and just watch. We're just going to announce what bar it's going to be at on the channel. Probably put it up on the YouTube studio community page, so you could see that it's like a tweet but on YouTube. Probably put it up on Twitter, probably put it up on Instagram. So there's going to be a meetup, and maybe we'll do some more meetups after that, but we'll be starting August 9th in Nashville, the day before the 49ers play the Titans in the preseason. All right, any more good questions? We're going to run a 49ers 53-man roster projection, probably, I'm guessing Sunday. I was going to do it tonight, but we had to tackle this Brock Purdy, Jordan Love news first. So there's a look at the roster. We'll take a look at the projection a little bit later. It's time for me to go eat some Mexican food. Burritos coming up. We'll talk to everybody very soon.